Bronies are some of the internet's oldest jokes, often ridiculed for their cringy behavior online. The question I asked myself when seeing these old cringe compilations is really, what are the bronies like? Do we have bronies pegged all wrong? Well, I decided to go and find out for myself. I packed my bags, put my camera gear into my backpack, and headed on down to Baltimore, one of the most dangerous cities in America, to experience what it's really like to be one of the bronies. 3 hours later from New York City, I found myself there, at Bronycon, the largest brony convention in the world. Hello Internet, my name is FPS Diesel, and today, I'm going to become a brony.
Hello Internet, FPS Diesel here. So about 3 p.m. yesterday I got into Baltimore, and boy was I in for a surprise.
Once again tonight across the country, all eyes are focused here on Baltimore, now with palpable unrest as the city begins its first night of curfew after violent clashes between police and protesters.
You know, I've been in Baltimore, what, two days now, and this city might be one of the worst places I have ever been. At one point, actually, the president, Donald Trump, called the city a rat's nest. And, you know, a lot of people got on him for that, but I think I can come to that with some statistics and anecdotal evidence. Now, I've been here for, what, two days? And first of all, the first night there was Edgar, our roach, and now Stuart, the mouse, who may or may not be still somewhere inside our stove system. You know, the mouse showed up last night. I didn't think the mouse was actually there. Maybe, you know, who knows? Like, what's up, right? This morning, I'm eating some breakfast. Guess what I see there? I see Stuart, the mouse, fucking sitting on the stove like a little asshole, and like I paid money for this Airbnb and I didn't expect like this to be that bad. So that's amazing, right? So that's some anecdotal evidence, right? And there's also like the crime and drug dealing and things that we have just witnessed as we've been around the city. But beyond that, Baltimore does have a pretty storied history surrounding violence and crime. It's certainly not something somebody pulls out of their ass, right? Now, I'm not arguing how or why these crimes happen, I'm just saying that they do happen. After the death of Freddie Gray in 2015 and the following riots, they actually had a peak in violent crime in the city, right? So they had a total of 344 reported homicides, right? But that's not it for the city. They've actually had a lot more. In 2017, the homicide rate was 55.7 for every 100,000 citizens, right? And this is per 100,000 in the population of Baltimore. Forcible rape, 62.29, robbery, 958, aggravated assault, 949, total violent crime, 2,027. Property crime is significantly higher. In fact, it's more than double the rate of violent crime in the city, with burglary at 1,311, larceny theft at 2,773, motor vehicle theft at 843, arson at 42, and total property crime, 4,928. That's more than one car stolen a day. On top of that, that's ridiculous. That's ridiculously high. I haven't been to a city that high. In fact, on a scale, Baltimore rates higher than Oakland for violent crime in a city. In fact, it rates one above. It's in the top 5 for most dangerous cities to visit. Obviously, making it in the top 5 is no easy task, but this city has done it. You go down some streets and they're barren, empty, abandoned buildings, broken down. It resembles something more or less out of The Walking Dead rather than any modern everyday city. And given that this is a city that is home to the Orioles, the Ravens, Utz Company, the company, you know, the chips, and also I think Domino Sugar is in this city. That's pretty amazing that the poverty rate is extremely high. In fact, I think it has some of the highest unemployment rates in the United States. Public housing is expensive and unaffordable for a lot of people, and where you're living is a shithole. Literally, if you don't know whether or not it's a shithole, walk outside in Baltimore and go to the place that people call Beyond Thunderdome, which is just like a road where that's where we saw the lady who did crack. Right? She was just sitting there, she was doing crack, the kids were playing ball on the other side of the street. That's all I can say. And I'm surprised that they were hosting Bronycon here. I assume it's because it's cheap. But the moral of the story is that they are definitely putting people in danger. With that being said, there's another day coming up, and there's a ball, like there's a gala. And yes, I'm going to that.
I think the first thing that's really most telling about bronies is their age. Not as an individual, but as a group. Usually when I talk about an online community, their age is usually within the last 5 years, as social media helps facilitate the growing of these people online. Bronies, however, are a different story entirely. First off, it goes without saying that bronies are first and foremost fans of the show, which is much older than a lot of the online communities we see on my channel. More specifically, a lot of the bronies we see today are fans of the Friendship is Magic incarnation of MLP. MLP is actually a super old brand from the 1980s. Originally, the brand was called My Pretty Pony. It was a listing of characters designed by Hasbro to capitalize off the female market for toys. Nowadays, the ancient horses from the original line of My Little Pony have become collector's items amongst the brony fandom. Seriously, some of these ponies can cost a whole horse and hoof, and it's quite the pricey endeavor to collect all of these figures. Now, the original show only lasted 1 year, and with good reason. I mean, look at it. A lot of people look at that show and go, it's not the best incarnation, though the show certainly has its fans amongst older bronies. For some reason, though, I'm pretty sure a lot of you have heard this theme song.
My little pony, my little pony, comb and brush her hair. My little pony, tie a ribbon to show how much I care.
Yeah, I bet you've never even heard the show before, but I bet you know that song. Very strange. I thought that was just quite interesting, actually. Now, the fandom itself, as bronies alone, has dated back about a decade or so. You know, we can start to see it be formed back in 2010. That's when bronies and ponies went mainstream with Friendship is Magic, which is the version that all of you are probably familiar with. Granted, the fandom is slightly older, perhaps, because of the fact that it overlaps quite frequently with the furry fandom. After Friendship is Magic hit the Hub Network, which was a Hasbro-branded TV channel, the show basically went mainstream. Bronycon was one of the original events for bronies to gather and meet. Originally, it had started as a small group of bronies in New York gathering just to hang out and enjoy the show, art, and culture of what it's like to really be a brony. And for further reference, some people don't know, but brony is actually a portmanteau of bro and pony, being that the people who went to these gatherings were usually dudes who enjoyed My Little Pony. Though, as with the more malleable nature of words, it just means somebody who's a fan of My Little Pony these days. It's not gender specific.
We all loved kids' TV shows when we were kids, but some people never grow out of it. Meet the bronies.
The fandom online started in a lot of places. It started from a very disparate, different groupings of communities online, and Wikipedia credits 4chan as the breeding ground for pony kind, but I'd argue that's not the case here. The group is way too large to just go back all the way to only 4chan. I don't know, when people credit 4chan as the answer for why something exists that I don't understand, it really seems like they don't know how the internet works, and they don't know what people are, or they're very weirded out by the fact that somebody enjoys something. So, they say it does, but there's probably a good chance that there are other forums or areas where bronies began to congregate in the beginning just as much as 4chan. In fact, bronies ended up congregating on an offshoot of 4chan called PonyChan. Basically, it's a forum where the fandom can discuss anything and everything about the show in a variety of manners. Now, I'm certain I've shown a bit of shots from the convention and things that I saw as we've been going through and covering some of this history, and allow me to address the large anthropomorphic fox in the room. Yes, there are furries there. In fact, there is an incredible overlap between the brony and furry fandom, and to be honest, it wasn't that bad. I didn't get it on film, not to be rude, but at one point there was at least 100 people doing a fursuit meetup. I had never seen that many fursuits in one place at one time. It was so many. It was incredible. Honestly, a sight that you'd have to see in person. I didn't want to go around filming it and sticking a camera in people's faces, because that's rude. But it was crazy, and one of the most interesting things that I had ever experienced. Really, it was just a bunch of people dressed up in costume having fun, and I don't really think there's a problem with that. Now, since there is an overlap with the brony and furry fandom, it goes without saying, it's not uncommon to see a pony or two in the mix of drawings on Fur Affinity or wherever furries meet, perhaps Facebook. Now, we'll talk about those things when I do furries next year, and stay tuned to the end of the video so that way you can learn about the project that will be happening next year. But in the meantime, who are the bronies as a people? I can say anecdotally and in relation to the furry fandom that bronies are actually an incredibly diverse group of people. Much like the furry fandom, I would argue bronies are equally, if a little less bohemian than the furries. Bronies are incredibly kind and open and lovers of their fandom's respective arts. I got there the first day and learned real quickly that the internet has conditioned me, probably incorrectly, about who these people are and really what I was going to see there. I met a very diverse groups of people. It was much larger than I thought it would be. I met parents with their kids, scientists on a week off with the family. I met working people with careers. Hell, I even met real genuine psychologists who have been studying brony kind since I was a young lad. They're even writing a book on their findings. I spent some time getting introduced to many people of whom were artists themselves, vending at the convention, talking to and meeting different and interesting people who were working there and doing different things. Now, believe it or not, I was expecting weirdos, and it makes sense given the videos that we see online, but they were normal. I really can't believe I have to say this, but I think a lot of people that are watching this are expecting me to say, bronies are weird. But no, it's just an unconventional hobby that a normal person enjoys. This is kind of like the equivalent of finding out a friend enjoys stamp collecting. Like, yeah, who even sends mail anymore, but, I mean, at least it's something that they enjoy. I stood there in the large, packed vendor hall and really thought to myself, is this really so unconventional when each year I pack my bags and I head to a gaming convention to look at and stare at new products from video games? Now, this might be something some of you have noticed from my other videos on fandoms, and I feel like it's fairly important to address here. And I think we can see this very well when I looked at the K-pop fandom. But a fandom's core values are usually directly tied into the media that they're consuming that forms that fandom. Basically, it's how that media interacts with the fandom and vice versa. This is why we get a weird kind of godlike worship in the K-pop fandom. But what is the kind of response we get in the MLP fandom? In actuality, the MLP fandom is very inclusive, including a very positive and helping attitude. This is actually backed by the research from Meet the Bronies, where it states that being a brony is associated with being more pro-social and more charitable. The structure of BronyCon actually does reflect this, by the way. We can even see it in how badges are structured. And honestly, looking at how badges are structured at BronyCon, I would like to see similar things taken up by other cons in the future, because I think it could help alleviate a lot of the stress that certain people have. So, right here is my badge for BronyCon, and you're gonna notice the first thing here is this green label. Now, in BronyCon, there's a set of cards that basically have different colors corresponding to it. There's also a yellow one right here. And also, this is the first time I've ever gotten a badge that has my name written on it at all. So that was pretty interesting, actually. But what are these badges? Why are they here? What's the purpose of them? Well, first of all, this is the first time that I've ever seen so much care put into how badges are distributed. But also, a lot of these people in the respective fandoms, they're even including gaming, can tend to be a little bit, have issues talking to people or being a sociable individual, or, you know, maybe sometimes they don't want to make friends, sometimes they do. So how do you communicate that effectively, simply, and without putting that person in a situation that could cause them to feel immense panic or anxiety? How do you want to minimize that? Now, I leave this on green, but green means that anybody can come up and talk to you. Obviously, I'd leave it on green because I'm a YouTuber and people are going to be like, that's Diesel, and he's here. In fact, I actually had some people come up and say, oh my god, what are you doing here? To which I responded, it's for a video. Now, yellow says that you can only talk to me if you know me, right? So basically, if you're hanging out with your friends, you'd have this on, and you don't really want to meet other people. You know, meeting new people might bother you, it might make you anxious, you know, things like that. And it's not really like it's in your face or forceful either. It's not like being rude about it. You know, the card's there just for the card to be there and make it really simple for other people. Some people go for the social aspect. Some people just go to shop, which is why you have the red one. And what the red one means is that I don't want to be spoken to, you know, I just want to be left alone right now. I'm just doing my thing by myself. Don't talk to me, basically. Now, I think this symbol is very concise and honestly comforting for those with social anxiety or those that are on the spectrum. It's inclusive without being obnoxious, which is a line that I think a lot of cons or people in general tend to cross way too often. So it's very interesting and nice that BronyCon has been able to figure out a way to do it without being obnoxious. The diversity of jobs and people was incredibly large. According to research, 85% of bronies are male, but I would argue a lot of women were at BronyCon, much more than the small 15%. Now, according to the research, 15% of the fandom falls under LGBTQ, though I would also argue that this is much larger, but I think we really just need a larger sample size. Now, while I have had lots of revelations on this trip and the people I've met and the variety of people I've met, allow me to be critical because I've done it before. So, let's talk about the kind of things that are usually associated with this fandom. And let me just say this. Yes, some of these people do need to shower. I understand where that idea comes from. It was bad. It was incredibly bad. I don't know how you could have a nice shower at a hotel and not use it for like 3-4 days. No, not everyone smelled bad and the place didn't reek of Funyuns 24/7, but it was enough that when I was walking by someone, I would get a pretty strong whiff and I wouldn't know really how to respond or react because the smell was strong. It was gamer strong. It was I haven't bathed and I'm at TwitchCon for like 3 days strong. Seriously, the smell was a lot riper than I could have ever predicted. Guys, shower. Please shower. Shower, please. And I think another thing that's usually associated with stuff like BronyCon is the idea of porn. Now, according to Meet the Bronies, apparently only a quarter of bronies are out there looking for pony porn, but after talking to people, this number seems like it's kind of deliberately much smaller. Either that or people just need to be more open about their kinks, but yeah, there was porn there. There was a lot of that there. Granted, this might just be because sex tends to sell and stick out to us when we see it, but yes, there was definitely lots of hentai. Now, I read some boomers' hot take on all of this, and apparently, like, it's getting into children's hands, you know, and unless you go to a con, you're really not ever going to be exposed to, like a body pillow with, like, anatomically correct parts or stuff like that. You're just not going to see that in everyday consumption of the media. It doesn't happen. You have to put that child in the way of that to be exposed to that. Either that or actually monitor what they're looking at online. So it's just like, it's weird because Bronycon says they're family friendly, but you know, we have to take into account what is family friendly and ask the very academic question of, is it hentai or is it just ecchi? Bronies have a really rich cultural footprint otherwise, especially outside of the usual cringe stuff that we tend to watch online. For example, I'm certain some of you have heard this song before.
Discord, I'm howling out the moon and sleeping in the middle of a summer afternoon. Discord, what havoc did we do to make you take no other way?
That song is Discord, and I bet some of you have heard it because there's a version by the living Tombstone that is extremely popular. This song has been covered by tons of people online. I'm certain you've heard it somewhere before. And to be honest, Discord's actually not a bad song. I gotta be real with you there. Now, some of you might have heard bronies enjoy their raves. In fact, I believe that the brony fandom got such entrenched with EDM because when the brony fandom really hit mainstream, EDM was super popular. But boy oh boy, do they enjoy raves. In fact, you can find videos of raves online. Now, I didn't have time to go, but, you know, I was around when people were playing and listening to EDM music. Now, you can find cringe videos of these raves around on the internet. Granted, it's just a couple of people dancing and enjoying music. At the end of the day, it's just, that's all it is. And again, it's only an educated guess as to why raves and EDM music have become so entrenched with the culture, but I would imagine it's because of when and where the culture started, and again, the EDM boom of the mid-2000s is something that would definitely be taken into the folds of other communities blowing up around that time. Also, I found a Nightcore version of You're Gonna Go Far Kid as sung by Rainbow Dash, and I'm sorry guys, Nightcore is just a bad genre. It was at this point I decided to sit down and watch some episodes of MLP, and you know what? Again, it's something that I can say it's not that bad. Seriously, I ended up watching the multi-part episodes because I've heard those are better and more kind of fuller, interesting stories. So, I did that. So, in total, I guess you could say I watched 4 episodes, though at the end of the day, it's only 2 kind of different stories. Now, clearly I'm not the target's demographic, and I'm not hankering to go watch it anytime soon. I really feel like I've gotten my fill, but it's not like the show was really bad. In fact, the writing in the episodes I watched was pretty good. There's songs that are pretty good, there's animation that's like okay, I guess, for a kid's show, and then there's good fun villains and good Disney-like songs. It's really not a bad time. The episodes I watched had Twilight Sparkle, this one's Twilight Sparkle, trying to stop her brother. This is her brother. This guy is trying to get married to this lady, but this lady is not a good lady, she's a bad lady. Now, the episode that this is all from actually helped inspire a MLP fighting game, an MLP-inspired fighting game, because they were going to get sued if they used the actual characters from the show. But the game's called Them's Fightin' Herds. But I can say most definitely the multi-part episode I enjoyed the most is where the main pony crew go to a commune. Like a communist commune. And yes, everyone in this commune has their originality stripped from them. Yes, everyone's body, their cutie mark, which is those marks on their butts, they've been replaced with an equal sign. It's a place where everyone's equal. This is amazing. It's a simple story about while individuality is a great thing and it's, you know, much better, and while people will argue being individuals, it's much better than everyone being the grayest and blobbiest blob. But, like, oh my god, this show, like, this is an episode that literally children and some adults should watch. I was actually surprised at the depth and complexity of this, and the fact that there are people my age and older who have trouble grasping the idea that, maybe us being different isn't so bad. And to do that all with the trappings of a communist commune and some weird lady who has magical powers, just for some reason works. And it's actually really good. And I gotta say, I tried watching some other episodes after that, and I can tell you the show's not for me. It's not really something I enjoy. It's not my favorite brand of fiction. Same reason I can't really get into Steven Universe. Not all the episodes are striking works of fiction, but I get why people like it, and it makes sense for stories like these. You know, stories that are simple and have some complexity, yet they tell important messages that I think a lot of children, or even media in general, is missing these days. I'm serious when I say this, that My Little Pony does a lot better job conveying messages and themes than a lot of other shows that you'd watch that a lot of people enjoy these days. I think it does a pretty good job in comparison to something like Steven Universe. And I think between MLP and Steven Universe, there's not a show that really does it well like these shows. It makes sense why people would enjoy these shows. There's very clear reasons to. I was expecting cringe the whole way through, and again, I didn't. Now, this is gonna bring me to the Bronycon ball. Now, I really wanted to go and see this. This is amazing. Just hearing about this was something I didn't want to miss. So I geared up and donned my best business casual and went with my girlfriend to a dance and run into Chris Chan. More than once. Hey! We got there into the hall and classical video game music was playing and people were ballroom dancing. Then the lights dimmed and My Little Pony characters came out on stage. Well, people dressed as these characters, or dressed to represent these characters. Point of the matter is they were these characters. These characters had dance routines, and bits, and comedy, and acts. They got up there and acted. I was surprised at what was happening. I did not expect this at all. A guy dressed as Discord, the series antagonist, came out and sang a song from Hamilton. You know, the one that the king talks about America as if it's his jilted lover. You know the one. I can't play it, otherwise, you know, Lin-Manuel Miranda will come down from his ivory tower and beat me up and break my knees. Then I guess what happened after this is that all of the people in the ball got transported into a video game at the whims of another character that they were doing something on stage. And at one point, Rainbow Dash came out dressed up as Sonic the Hedgehog, and then played DDR with Spike the Dragon, and it really sounds like I'm talking like this is a fever dream, but I swear it's not. Also, Spike the Dragon was dressed as Link just to make it even stranger. All this to say, the atmosphere was kind and inviting, and it was a beautiful summation of really who bronies actually are. They're extremely positive, optimistic, and welcoming to others. Some are definitely the weird misfits with weird gigantic anime swords and fedora-wearing hats and trench coats. But, you know, for their respective hometowns, if they were misfits there, at least they found a place to belong here. I found a community and group of people that are much more complex than the internet had ever led me to believe. There is this overwhelming sense of positivity as I look back on Bronycon and all the interesting and odd, fun people and characters that I met along that journey. By all accounts of me being a random YouTuber with a camera and gear that would certainly terrify some people, I honestly was so welcomed into this world. I was very much surprised. The idea that these people would welcome me in when others would do the same to gawk at them really speaks volumes to how they act with people. There's something oddly captivating and beautiful about it all, and I just can't help but feel enthralled by just every single facet of it. I'm worried about the Brony fandom, though. I'm worried because it's on the decline. They aren't as often discussed in the internet zeitgeist anymore, being they're just a fandom doing their own thing. And research backs this, stating how few bronies are entering the fandom and much more are aging out of the fandom. I fear there will come a time when bronies are just a piece of history. And this really didn't settle in for me until Bronycon's closing ceremonies began to start. I felt this certain sadness around others in the hall. It was a very somber but happy, sad feeling. Not only was this a piece of internet history, this was a lot of people's memories where they met their friends, and for some people where they met their lovers. Bronycon's closing was the closing of a book much larger than we could imagine on internet history. As I walked out of the Baltimore Convention Center one last time, I thought to myself, at least I learned one thing. I learned, just a little bit, why friendship is like magic. Wow, okay, that took a long time to do. Seems like Diesel just decided to leave things on the back burner forever. Next time I do something like this, I need to have a game plan, and I'm gonna write a post-mortem about this on my blog. So if you're interested in filmmaking or my process for how I do something like this, feel free to read that below. I would be interested to know all your takes down in the comments below. Anyway, next time I do this, for sure, I need to have a game plan. I had a loose game plan coming into this, but next time I need to be more concise, and I need to plan out the gear I'm going to bring much further in advance, and also figure out what the gear is that I'm bringing. I could also use a shot list, list of interviews, let's see what else I have here. I need to figure out what's happening at the con way before it's even going to happen, really, at the end of the day. I really need to hit my notes and really work out what pre-production is, so something like this isn't trapped in development hell, and also I'm not rushing to figure out what I'm doing in post-production. Next, I'm going to highly recommend the book that was used for reference in this, which is Meet the Bronies. I talked to those psychologists. We had a long conversation, and they're very educated people. I wish I could have gotten an interview. I just didn't want to wait anymore on this. But Meet the Bronies, it's out there. I'll leave a link to it down below so you can check it out. I recommend it as a read, especially if you're interested in things like online communities and the kind of internet anthropology that I'm interested in. I think we need more academic investment in internet culture, so hopefully this is the start of something really good. I'd like to see more of it, and I'd like to be involved with more things like that in the future. Next, I should say the big announcement that I was saying at the beginning of this video. And next, who am I going to meet? Where am I going to go? What's going to happen? Now, while I'd like to branch out from internet communities and cover other things and do more interesting and more fuller, richer experiences, in the meantime, I think you guys already know who I'm going to do next. That's right, internet. In 2020, I'm going to meet the furries. I'll see you at Anthrocon.